Imagine a man so violent even prison couldn't stop him, or a drug lord who escaped custody not once but twice. These are the stories of criminals so dangerous, their names still send chills down your spine. What made them so feared? Want to know? So why wait? Grab your seat and get ready to uncover the list of the most feared men in a U.S. prison. A man covered in tattoos and known for his chilling smile became one of California's most feared criminals. Born in 1988 in Bakersfield, California, his early life was filled with pain. He faced abuse and neglect, which many believe pushed him toward a dark path. In 2011, his name became infamous when he brutally murdered 37-year-old Yvette Pina at the El Morocco Motel. The details of the crime were beyond disturbing. He tortured her with a knife and other objects before ending her life. In 2017, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. But prison didn't stop Osuna's thirst for violence. In March 2019, inside Corcoran State Prison, he shocked even the most hardened officials. His new cellmate, Luis Romero, had been in the cell for only 2 days before Osuna turned it into a nightmare. When guards did their morning check, they found Romero decapitated and mutilated. Osuna had taken out his eye, cut off a finger, removed part of his lung, and even made a necklace from his body parts. Despite his history of violence, prison officials placed Romero in his cell, a decision still under investigation. Osuna, with his skull-like tattoos and eerie grin, has left many questioning how such a dangerous man was handled so carelessly. Joaquin Archivaldo Guzman, Loera, better known as El Chapo, is a name that scares a lot of people. Born into a poor family in Sinaloa, Mexico, he grew up in the world of drugs. His father was in the drug business, and by the late 1970s, Guzman was already learning how to grow marijuana for dealers. By the 1980s, he was working for one of Mexico's top drug lords, Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo. But El Chapo wanted more. When Felix was arrested in 1888, Guzman started his own cartel. By the 1990s, El Chapo was running a huge drug business. He was smuggling drugs like cocaine and heroin into the US and Europe. He was known for being very violent. But what really made him dangerous was his ability to escape the law. In 1993, El Chapo was caught in Guatemala and sent to a Mexican prison. But in 2001, he bribed his way out, escaping through a secret tunnel. In 2014, El Chapo was caught again, but he escaped once more by crawling through a tunnel under his prison's bathtub. After a gunfight in 2016, he was captured again this time. He was extradited to the US and is now facing time in ADX Florence. Authorities take his security so seriously that they even shut down the Brooklyn Bridge when moving him between his jail cell and the courthouse. Barry Mills, also known as the Baron, was the feared leader of the Aryan Brotherhood, one of the most dangerous prison gangs in the U.S. With just 100 to 150 members, the gang was small, but what they lacked in numbers, they made up for in violence and power. The Aryan Brotherhood was known for selling drugs, extorting fellow white inmates, and even taking contracts to kill people. Under Barry Mills's rule, the gang became the most ruthless group inside prison walls. Mills thought his gang was untouchable, believing they were above the law. The murders carried out by the Aryan Brotherhood weren't secret. They were done publicly to send a loud message: mess with us, and you will pay. The FBI thought they could end Barry Mills' reign by locking him away in ADX Florence, a supermax prison, but they were wrong. In 1997, a fight broke out between a member of the Aryan Brotherhood and the DC Blacks, a rival gang. What seemed like a regular fight turned into something much bigger, an all-out war. The DC Blacks declared war on the Aryan Brotherhood, and soon, violent attacks were happening daily. Barry Mills and his right-hand man Tyler Bingham decided to take things to the next level. In a brutal attack, a senior Aryan Brotherhood member stabbed the leader of the DC Blacks, setting off even more chaos. By 2006, the feds had enough and cracked down hard on the Aryan Brotherhood, charging Mills and other leaders with everything from drug trafficking to murder. Mills and Bingham were both found guilty and sentenced to life without parole, sending them back to the supermax prison. Larry Hoover, one of Chicago's most infamous gang leaders, grew up on the south side of Chicago and rose to power as the head of the Gangster Disciples. At just 15 years old, Hoover took control of the gang, and by the late 1960s, it was one of the most powerful and dangerous groups in Chicago. The Gangster Disciples were making millions through drugs and crime. However, Hoover's criminal activities eventually caught up with him. In 1973, he was sentenced to 150 to 200 years in prison for orchestrating the murder of a gang member, William Young, who had crossed him. But even behind bars, Hoover didn't lose his grip on power. Instead of fading into the background, he expanded his influence from prison. He rebranded the Gangster Disciples as Growth and Development, promoting community building and education. The gang launched voter registration initiatives, opened a music label that donated to charity, and even encouraged members to run for public office. While Hoover's public image shifted toward that of a reformed figure, the gang continued illegal operations, generating over $100 million annually. In 1995, Hoover was arrested again after a major operation. He was sentenced to 6 life terms and sent to ADX Florence, a supermax prison in Colorado. His supporters, including high-profile figures like Kanye West and Drake, argue that Hoover has genuinely changed, highlighting his push for education and nonviolence. But many still see him as one of the most dangerous criminals in Illinois. Dairo Antonio Úsuga, David, the man you could say is next after Pablo Escobar in drug trafficking, lived a life filled with violence and danger. Born into poverty, he quickly joined a guerrilla group at just 18, fighting for the poor. But when the group made peace, Úsuga wasn't satisfied. He craved the chaos and joined a far-right paramilitary group. This was just the beginning of his dark path. In 2005, he joined the Gulf Clan, a powerful drug cartel led by Daniel Rendon Herrera. When Herrera was arrested in 2009, Úsuga and his brother Giovanni took control. Under their rule, the cartel thrived, smuggling huge amounts of cocaine into the U.S., raking in billions. He became one of the most feared criminals, known for his brutal tactics and influence. Despite efforts by the authorities, capturing Úsuga was nearly impossible. Over 132 arrest warrants were issued, but he always slipped away. His cartel even took down a police helicopter, killing 10 officers. But in 2021, Colombian authorities finally caught a break. They tracked Úsuga's location, and on October 23, 2021, after an intense operation, they captured him in a remote area. In May 2022, he was extradited to the U.S. He pleaded guilty to trafficking drugs and violent crimes. The court decreed that he is to serve his sentence at ADX Florence. Fotios Geas, a name that strikes fear in the world of organized crime, has a story filled with violence, betrayal, and shocking twists. Born in 1967, Freddy was part of the infamous Genovese crime family, operating out of Springfield, Massachusetts. Despite being from a Greek background, which kept him from being a made member of the Italian Mafia, Freddy and his brother Ty were feared enforcers, making a name for themselves in the crime world. Their ruthless nature caught the attention of the crime bosses, and in 2003 they were involved in 2 brutal murders, including that of Adolfo Big Al Bruno, a powerful Genovese boss. Freddy's reputation only grew after these hits. But his path to a life sentence took a dark turn when his associate Anthony Arrelotta turned informant and betrayed him. Then came a shocking moment in 2018. Freddy, already in prison, learned that Whitey Bulger, the notorious Boston gangster and FBI informant, was transferred to the same facility. The very next morning, Bulger was found dead in his cell, brutally attacked by fellow inmates. Many believed Freddy was behind it, and they were right. In 2022, Freddy was charged with Bulger's murder, adding more years to his already life sentence. In September 2024, Freddy was sentenced to 25 additional years, making his prison sentence even longer. The court decreed that he is to serve his sentence at a DX Florence,